Hey YouTube, Warbles on a lot here with the second clip in the special experiment series using the Mark III SunFoil, and the experiment was designed for and is being performed at the request of at Oldtimer. For those of you who missed the first clip in the series, it is almost 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Yesterday at 4 o'clock I measured the battery voltage of this car as being 13.28 volts, which is slightly over full. I took the fuse out of the fuse port and I measured the current going from the regulator to the battery as being nothing, but the battery voltage dropped to 13.24 volts while I was doing that, so there must have been some current going from the flat solar panel, despite the western horizon being completely tree shadowed in. And as a check of the multimeter, I put it onto the Mark I's SunFoil's battery lead going down there, and the multimeter detected 0.01 of an amp, right? Coming from the Mark I, presumably because it's got its panels at an angle in order to catch diffuse sunlight. So, fully charged battery, over 13.2 volts. Now let's see what it is now. We take our multimeter prong, we turn our multimeter on, we have a little bit of a look and a laugh at all of the dings in the battery terminal from being pronged so many times by the curious mad scientists. 1.267, right? An hour ago, when I first started trying to film this clip, despite the bloopers, it was 1.268. So therefore, I got 1.268 written down there on my notebook. Now, what does that mean? Asks the people who are not familiar, and I'm sure Oldtimer knows what it means, but a lot of people don't. There's your 1.267. Here's your 13.2 volts, which is a fully charged battery, right? Now, if we run up the scale and come across, 1.267 volts is between 80 and 85% full, right? 13.2 volts is 100% full. So, according to the voltage, we've used 15% of the battery's stored capacity, and I don't believe that's right. I don't believe that's right because the 12.67 volts is what the battery is holding against the static drain. And I can't measure the static drain at the moment because my son's got my clamp meter and it's 20 kilometres away. What I have noticed is that if you've got a 45 amp hour battery that's reading 12.5 volts, the static drain will be down around 0.02 of an amp, right? Well within the range of normal according to Oldtimer. If you've got a battery that's 13.2 volts, a 95 amp hour battery, the static drain is closer to 0.1 with this car. It's a phenomenon I've noticed with a lot of battery fed electronic systems. If the battery's full, the current drain is much higher than if the battery is not full, and the system continues to work. Alright, my inverter will suck 4.5 amps out of a fully charged battery that's just come off the generator in order to run 2 lights and a radio in my hut. 4 hours later, when the battery voltage has dropped and the surface charge has already been used, the same 2 lights and radio with the same inverter and the same battery, 2.5 amps coming out of the battery. Right? So the static drain is a variable feast, and I've based my calculations on the static drain as measured with a full battery, right? Because that's the idea of it, keep the battery full. Now, let's have a look at the specific gravity. All of the old textbooks tell you that the specific gravity should be 1.3, okay? When you go and buy a bottle of brand new electrolyte in Australia, it is 1.265. When they fill the battery at the factory beside the lead smelter in South Australia, they fill the battery with 1.265 specific gravity. When I received this battery, It had been in transit for 3 weeks, because that's how long it takes to get here, and it had sulfated down to 1.250. It took the SunFoil 6 weeks to boil off the excess water and restore the battery electrolyte to 1.3. Right? 6 weeks of supplementary feeding by the SunFoil to turn a new battery into a new battery. Okay, that's how the system is set up at the moment. All right. Let's have a look and see what the specific gravity is now. Okay, now look, this is pretty much boring as batshit watching somebody else do specific gravity readings, but if I don't show it on camera, there's going to be somebody who reckons I fudged these figures. The battery is a year old. And there we have flotation at 1.285. Try it again. 1.285. Okay. Moving on to the next cell. 1.3 there. And yeah, we're floating. 1.285. Floating. 1.29. Okay, started to float there, and that was about 1.265 actually. Starting to float at 1.275. Thing is, the inside of the hydrometer is wet and you get surface tension from the water, sticks the float to the inside of the glass. And 1.275. Yeah, we're floating. 1.275. Okay, now this is another little interesting trick. Two PET bottles sticky taped together. This is the hillbilly method of not dribbling sulfuric acid all over the inside of your car when you're playing with a hydrometer. Okay, so 1.29 to 1.275, right? Let's take that as an average between them. So we're down around the 93% according to the battery specific gravity, somewhere between 97 and 92, call it 95. Okay, so according to the electrolyte, I've used about 5% of the battery's rated storage capacity of, in theory it's a 95 amp hour battery. I've used about 5 amp hours. According to the voltage, which as I said, it's being sucked on while it's being measured, we've used about 15%. Let's say 7%, right? I've used maybe 5 to 7 amp hours, right? Now, if it's 7 amp hours at 200 mils of petrol, 207 mils of petrol per amp hour, that's 1.4 litres that I'm going to have to feed the battery next time I start the engine to kiss and make up for the failure to fully charge it yesterday and the static drain while it's been sitting there today. All right? And if you think that I normally only use the car 3 or 4 days a week, we're well within the ballpark for my estimation on how much fuel it takes to make 1 amp hour and how much fuel I've measured myself saving in a week and how much my fuel burn has dropped for the same amount of distance driving at a higher speed. So I think the experiment's going pretty well. At least I haven't shot myself down so far. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Because I don't have the clamp meter, I can't take simultaneous volts and amps readings. I'm going to have to use the multimeter in the fuse port to determine how much current the solar panel is feeding to the battery. But we'll see what we do. We'll see how we go. Oldtimer, I'm going to try and determine for you accurately how much it takes to charge up after 1 day with no solar panel. Right, warbles on a lot to YouTube. Take it easy, fellas. Ciao.